Hi again, guys. Here I am. Well, now we're going to attend a presentation on writing, which is the last skill for covering regarding the course. Remember that we checked reading in a couple of reading strategies. Well, we explore different kinds of texts, you know, whether images, graphs, or information text or academic texts, papers, etc. We also read Harmer's chapter on reading, and we could explore a couple of tips, strategies, techniques for reading, such as the identification of the structure of the text, the kind of text it is, the form, analyzing the title, the kind of vocabulary, looking at pictures, information that could be taken from the details of the text, not to stop for every single word to be understood, but to read chunks of words, fragments of a sentence so that we can keep with the rhythm of the reading and try to guess the meaning of words you don't know or simply ignore the words. Those are a couple of tips for students to follow and that were actually included in the agenda of your previous tasks, as far as I remember. We also focused on a couple of strategies for reading in our previous tasks. I have already checked them and I was really happy to see your proposals. Skimming and scanning, guessing from context, paraphrasing, and previewing were the most common ones in your reading tasks. Now, strategies for writing. Take a look at the following text in Spanish. Very briefly, okay? It's about chocolate, okay? But if you can see, it's a very long paragraph, you know? It's a very long paragraph. It's just a single sentence. Well, writing in Spanish does not look the same as writing in English. In Spanish, we go for more straightforward sentences, short and concise sentences. Punctuation works differently. The use of commas in Spanish I use for numbering, separate the vocative, from the message, to exchange a verb that was already used, to place numbers, figures, decimals before conjunctions. Well, however, in English, we use them for the date, we use them for a linking words, for conjunctions as well. But we usually write short sentences and concise ones, unless we're talking about poetry or literature and we look at the canon. Well, that's a completely different story. Not even songs, the ones we were working on regarding listening. Well, punctuation plays a paramount role in writing. It's very interesting to reflect on the fact that reading and writing are totally linked. Literacy skills work together. The more you read, the more likely you are to develop effective writing skills. However, reading depends a lot on different elements, social or economic and situational elements, that change, backgrounds, change paradigms, so that people can actually read. And that's why I said it was very interesting, because if we think of the Mexican context, well, we find it really hard to read more than a book a year, and that actually is influenced, by our reading habits, and of course, as a result, we might face a couple of constraints regarding writing. Well, writing could be introduced, since childhood, um, to different strategies for working with punctuation, with the format, with the form, by playing, by drawing, and by using the signs effectively. Um, well, of course, this is an example of the risks we are in regarding bad use of punctuation. Um, of course, this is a very silly example, but it happens. It happens in academic writing, when writing an email, even when texting to your friends. Well, we need to take care of a form, when writing. Well, the meaning of what you want to state can be affected by means of punctuation. This is another example of that. Well, another example could be also the relationship between writing and speaking. When emphasizing words, stress, intonation, the meaning could change, of course. And so when you don't have the opportunity to write punctuation, you use phonemics, you use your oral production in order to provide with meaning. A couple of tips for writing in English might be to try to think in English, to use modules to follow, and that's why reading is very important. If you don't read, you're gonna find it really hard to identify patterns and problems. Learning functional expressions, such as semi-fixed phrases and fixed phrases. Focused on sequence words, or conjunctions, or how to use linkers, and to try to go for a spontaneous writing, without being scared, without being afraid. Try to write whatever comes to your mind, for then revising, evaluating, valuing, and editing. Well, linking words that could be useful for you, if you bear in mind that we should learn vocabulary in chunks, remember? Well, I would be linking words, right? How to use them, when, what for, in which moments, whether they are high register, low register, and you could implement them in your writing proposal. According to Harmer, we could follow a process approach or a product approach for developing writing. I ask you to focus on the process approach, which is more elaborate, for you to develop the planning stage, drafting for students, using graphic organizers, outlining the writing, and then edition, proofreading, um, drafting again, and a final version that, of course, is going to be worked out eventually. This is usually the process of a writing task. If we think of a publication, that's the way you need to work. If you think of a research paper, but also if you think of an argumentative essay, a response paper, a review, okay. And we're thinking about academic writing, okay. So take into consideration these stages: planning, the use of graphic organizers, outlining, drafting, revision, edition, final version, and the role of feedback of regarding the teacher's roles. The teacher might work as a monitor, as an organizer, as a resource, is a feedback provider, and well, there is this connection between students and teachers when writing that needs to take place for transference of knowledge. You know, when you use symbols to correct writing and you let the students to work by their own so that they can identify their own mistakes and correct them by their own. So your roles as a teacher are very important for developing writing skills and for becoming critical. Well, think of your experiences with writing, how you have developed your writing skills, to what extent reading was involved in recognizing models, paradigms, the tasks that help you develop academic writing, and the situations that actually enhance the development of the skill. You could have experienced a couple of meaningful tasks that you can remember that help you develop the writing skill. Use those models for the task you were asked to do for writing. Okay. And if you have any question, you can go to the sources of information, Harmer, of course, and you can send me an email at any moment. Okay. I will be really happy to read you, to read from your queries, your questions, and I'm gonna try to help as much as I can. Okay. Good luck with this final task. You can find the instructions on Eminus if you go to unit number 4. It's gonna be the last piece of homework. I hope you could take advantage of it and well try to do your best. We keep in touch. Thank you for your attention, by the way.